Just to keep on time and respect the Premier's time, we're going to stay exact to our timing. I will cut off on them right on the 6 and 5 minute mark, so please watch your time. Mr. Hallen, go ahead, please.
Thank you. I'll just start off by saying how I feel it's very shameful for the finance chair, Peter Fonseca, that went into hiding as soon as the premiers came calling to call a meeting on their request. Premier, thank you for being here and thank you for joining 70% of Canadians and 6 other premiers, including a Liberal premier, in telling this Liberal NDP government to spike the hike on the road to axing the tax by a common-sense Conservative government. The PBO once again reconfirmed that families are at a net loss on average because of this carbon tax scam. For example, in Alberta, a family will pay $2,900 into this carbon tax scam, and according to the finance minister herself, she said that families, and she was bragging that Alberta families get $1,800 in rebates, and that somehow Albertans should be grateful for this. Premier, can you please tell Canadians the human toll that this carbon tax scam puts on Albertan families so that the Liberals can understand the real pain it causes?
Well, I can tell you a couple of things. The way I think most Albertans look at it is the government is taking $1 and promising to give back 75 cents. And everybody knows that that's not a good deal. We've seen in the polling that people don't support the increase. They don't support the tax. And I can tell you an MNP report from October 2023 showed that 51% of Canadians are $200 or less away from being unable to meet their financial obligations. We also find that in Alberta, people are more likely to say that their level of debt is concerning to them, 51%, and that they are worried about their ability to repay their debts, 71%. So we took a number of affordability measures in order to be able to offset these costs over the last number of years. Foregone revenue of $7 billion. In fact, I'd be happy to itemize it if the member would like to ask me about it. But we are now at a point where we have to run a balanced budget as well. And we're just asking for the federal government to recognize that it's their turn to do their part to ease the affordability crisis.
Thank you, Premier. As you mentioned, in Atlantic Canada, when their Liberal MPs were revolting because their poll numbers were tanking, Atlantic Canada got a carve-out. Alberta got no such carve-out, just like the rest of Canada. Do you feel this is just another blatant attack on Alberta?
Look, I know that the question has been raised about the Supreme Court decision on the carbon tax, and I believe that the Supreme Court decided in favor of the government on that because they were making the argument that it was such an important national issue, it needed to be dealt with in a national way, and the rules needed to apply equally across the country. And yet we've heard the Quebec members say that they don't pay a carbon tax. We have heard as well that in Atlantic Canada, the most polluting home heating fuel, in fact, which is home heating oil, now has a reprieve for 3 years. Meanwhile, many of the provinces in the West made the decision years ago to switch to cleaner burning natural gas, and we're getting punished for it. So I would just appeal to this committee that if you want to apply the carbon tax, it has to be applied equally across the country in all provinces for all types of fuel. And if you're not going to apply it that way, then you need to give a reprieve across the country so that everybody is treated fairly. I think it's creating a national unity crisis, and I do believe that it's the obligation of the members around this table representing all parties to ensure fairness in the way each citizen is treated in the country if they have the mandate to do so.
Chair, I'm just going to raise a point of order. And
sure. Go ahead, Mr.
My
Naqvi.
sincere apologies to the Premier. I don't want to be disrespectful. I think yesterday, I see Mr. Hallen has a prop on his computer. Yesterday, you deemed that to be a prop, so I would just suggest that if he can not display that while he's on the screen, I'll appreciate it because that's...
Sure.
Yeah.
I can't see from the angle I'm at, but... Oh, yes. Mr. Naqvi has a point, if you wouldn't mind. Thank you, sir.
It's too bad the Liberals are triggered by a sticker once again. Premier, you know, when you talk about national unity crisis, I think of Stephen Guilbeault, who, as far as I know, is the only minister that has been in handcuffs and in an orange jumpsuit. Can you please speak a little bit about how dangerous his ideology is when it comes to our clean, responsible, low-carbon energy sector for Alberta and Canada's prosperity.
I should just make sure the committee knows exactly why Stephen Guilbeault faced law problems. One was for the stunt he pulled on the CN Tower. The other was that he climbed on the roof of our Premier, Ralph Klein, when his wife Colleen was home, terrifying her. So you can imagine how Albertans feel that this is the person now responsible for enacting emissions policy. I would say that we've been able to work constructively with the federal government on a number of areas. They have worked with us on establishing a net zero petrochemical plant with Dow Chemical, a net zero hydrogen plant with Air Products. We're in the process of getting to the final finish line on a net zero cement plant with Heidelberg. They've worked with us on de Havilland to make sure that we've got water bombers being built, not only in our province, but will also help the rest of the country. So I don't want to say that it's uniformly negative, but the spirit of cooperative federalism means that you do not take unilateral action in an area of provincial jurisdiction. It means that you work collaboratively, and I think the court has chastised the federal government, led by, in this area, Stephen Guilbeault, on 2 occasions for that, the Impact Assessment Act as well as the plastics ban. The approach that I would like to see them take is to work collaboratively with us the way we have, not come through with a cap on a particular industry, oil and gas emissions, which they have announced, or a cap on methane, which they have announced, which will disproportionately impact our province. Their proposal for a net zero power grid outside the Constitution under Section 92 and clearly demonstrates they don't understand how our electricity market works. Net zero vehicles, having 20% vehicles being sold by 2026, we know that that will simply kill our auto sector
Premier,
and reduce our ability.
I apologize. I have to ask you to wrap up.
Of course, those are just some examples, and not to mention that the minister doesn't seem to want to build roads. It's like he hasn't ever left downtown Montreal. It's a big country.
Thank you very much, Premier. Thank you, Mr. Helland. Mr. Sousa, please, for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Chair, and Premier, appreciate you being here, and I apologize for those earlier points of order. As you can appreciate, a Conservative chair brought you here without consultation of this committee to talk about main estimates, but now we're talking about something else completely different, which is meant for the Finance Committee. And yesterday we put forward a motion, the last motion, which the Conservative chair did not allow us to pass. He adjourned, which made it very clear what the will of the committee was, notwithstanding the misinterpretation of an earlier motion. So I just wanted to preface that by saying to you that we appreciate you being here, but we also recognize the politics involved and the partisanship that's taking place. And can you advise us, when were you contacted to appear before this committee?
Sure, I was contacted. We wrote a letter on March the 26th asking to appear before the Finance Committee.
No, the OGO committee. When were you approached to approach
correct.
OGO?
After we'd written our letter, we were approached on the same day, March the 26th, to appear before the committee.
Thank you for that. Another item is the notion of reducing emissions in Canada, reducing emissions across all provinces, trying to make Canada competitive. You reaffirm very eloquently the initiatives that are being taken, not just in the province of Alberta, but everywhere, in respect to trying to be innovative, the green economy, to do things concurrently. We are still a big oil and gas country. We still net a lot of revenue and recognize the importance of that export. We also recognize the importance of making it cleaner where possible to get it through. And those are important initiatives. I worked out in Calgary for many years in the early 80s, as did many of those from out east, to work out west. And I appreciate the industry. However, for our kids' sake, for your sake, for all of our sake, we want to make Canada even better, notwithstanding. And in Ontario, where I had the privilege of representing for some months, years, I should say, as Minister of Finance, we also brought in the cap and trade system. Similar to Quebec, we're part of the Western Climate Initiative to be exempt from the federal alternative, to be competitive and reinvest dollar for dollar into innovative industries while, again, being competitive. We have cement plants. We have a lot of things, as do you in Alberta, and you do trade. You've talked about some of the credits that you take advantage of, and Ontario was netting $1.5 billion or so in net earnings to be reinvested. And then a Conservative government came in and did away with that to pick a fight with Justin Trudeau, the Premier or the Prime Minister, on carbon tax when it was unnecessary. And here we have an opportunity to do things. I need to understand the incentive now that Alberta has been taking to innovate and bring forward all of these great reductions to emissions. Why are you doing that?
Well, I should say that we showed leadership back in 2007 by setting the first price on carbon, I believe, in North America. And we've continued with our industrial carbon pricing ever since. It's been renamed to the Technology, Innovation, and Emissions Reduction program. And the way it works is that industry is expected to be able to meet a certain standard. If they are above that standard, they pay into the fund. And then we use the fund to be able to reduce emissions elsewhere. So since 2009, we have seen over $2 billion invested through emissions reduction Alberta.
Yeah, those are fantastic. Why not expand it further? Like, why did you not take it a step further? Because we all recognize the importance of pricing carbon. Do you believe pollution should be free?
We have taken it further. We have asked for a recognition from ECCC to be able to acknowledge our tier program as being equivalent, and they did until 2030. And so we part of the way we did that is that we matched our increases with the federal increases. So by 2030, it'll go up to $170 on industrial emissions. We're talking today about retail emissions, and I look at those as being two totally different things.
And I understand. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Sorry.
No, it's my time.
I also just want to. say we also expanded it to include more. We included anyone under 2,000. My apologies.
No, I appreciate what you're saying. And we do offer rebates as a result of the consumer spending so that they get more than they receive. About 8 out of 10 families get that benefit. On another note, in Ontario, we also were looking at providing a Ontario pension plan to supplement the Canada pension plan, to add to it. And the whole intent was to enhance CPP to make it even stronger. It's also a matter of unity. It's a matter of protecting all Canadians. You spoke at the start of talking about Albertans and Canadians for the nation's benefit. Can you explain what benefit there is to Albertans by withdrawing from CPP, creating more costs, and putting at risk their retirement?
Well, there is a formula in the Act that was insisted upon by Ontario so that if Ontario ever wanted to get out of the Canada pension plan, there would be clear rules for how to do that. We applied that methodology and found that every year Albertans pay more in premiums than they get back in benefits with that invested over time. It has grown to about $334 billion that we would be entitled to based on the formula in the Act. I think it's important for all Albertans to know and also all Canadians to know just how unbalanced Confederation is, just how much Alberta does pay into Confederation.
When Ontario was a so-called have-not province, it still provided $11 billion more to the rest of the Federation than it received, whereas other provinces, and that has happened with Alberta, but it's a national unity issue. It's about protecting Canadians. It's also about protecting Albertans for their future retirement. Before I let you go, can you document the times that you were called upon to come to this committee so that we can have that report back as well?
Certainly. It was just the one time, and we said yes immediately.
Thanks. That is our time. Mr.